What is up, TPN? It's Adam again. This is a little break from what we've been doing this month. For those of you who are pro members, you know we're doing a big thematic piece throughout the year, and this month is based on skill upgrade. I had some plans for this episode. They fell through, and I realized that it didn't necessarily fit into this month anyways, so I have decided to do something I've been kind of toying around with, and I've done in the past, trying to do these a little more often, is kind of a recap of what's been going on in the network, the Facebook group, the pro group, what we've been doing at Hanger Flies, and stuff that's kind of coming up. You could call this a recap episode, I guess. Maybe I just said that. I don't even really remember. I've had quite the morning. A little dazed, as we can be coming off of a long weekend. Those of us with kids know, and those of us without kids know that as well. When we go out and maybe have a little bit too good of a time, or bouncing around the world on trips, or whatever we're doing to kind of make the days go by. I once heard a quote that was, "The days take forever, but the years fly by," especially when you have kids. I think as we get older, that really happens. Anyways, let's kind of get into some of the stuff that's been going on in the Facebook group. What we do is we get a January recap email to see what's happening in the Facebook group. And a few years back, to kind of give you a little inside baseball, we did something where we wanted it to be a very positive and environment where we're getting a lot more support. You can get all the negativity you want out in the rest of the world. So we're really trying to take that down a notch. If you go to some of the other forums out there, you will see there's a lot of negative feedback and comments for posts that people make. We're trying to circumvent some of that. And people could say, "Oh, that's an infringement on my freedom of speech." Well, it's a private group, and we want to keep it positive, so we can select who we want to keep in the group and who we don't want in the group. And we had to remove a few people who, what we would say, were not bringing the positivity the way that we would try to do it at TPNX in the analog and the meetup environment. And it's shown to have some value. One of the big things is there was a question for a pilot who's a little bit older, who's thinking about getting into the world of aviation. And people really rallied behind this. It seems that, at least in the TPN community, but beyond that, I think aviation in general is the flood of support that you get when you are making a leap of faith to go into the world of professional aviation. I think some of the stuff that we talked about in the last couple episodes and what we've been talking about on Pro this month really build off of that idea to upgrade those skill sets that maybe we're not strong on, or maybe we're just new to, and taking it step by step as we move forward in our aviation journey. The people in the Facebook group and in the pro community have been staunchly supportive of people who are making that leap. Now, I can't say whether or not the world, my crystal ball has been smashed for many years, so I never can predict anything future-wise, what's good, what's bad, what's ugly. But if you're making that move, this seems to be a pretty positive environment to get you pushed in the right direction when you're feeling those down times for whatever it might be, whether it's you're at a low time job and you're just not flying, like I've talked to somebody recently who's in that position, or if you're just starting out and it's kind of challenging monetarily, or some of the information is just not sinking in. I remember when I was in pilot training, I had pretty good hands. I could fly the airplane, but the most important piece, my brain just was not catching up. I struggled with learning the command of, I could put the airplane in a direction. The problem that I couldn't do was take all the relevant data points and put them in the correct sequence to make the rest of it work and put myself in a safe position. Now, for those of you who are in the GA world or are learning in that environment, it's a little bit slower and there's not as much of an overlap until you get beyond that and you start flying more dynamic environments, more complex aircraft, and definitely into more complex airspace. You need to have a better sequencing and system to get yourself in and out of those places, not only safely, but efficiently. because it costs a lot of money to fly airplanes too. So one of the things I talk about is because taking a different angle here, like people did in the Facebook group with this older quote pilot, which I don't really know their age. My guess is they're not in their 60s, but young enough to go do it professionally for a 121 carrier for a while. Is that let's talk about a couple of realistic views of not only getting into that world, which is what they discussed, is that there's some pitfalls. You may not gain the seniority, the money at the end of the rainbow might not be as high as somebody who's younger. Those things, I think we know a lot of that. But the other side of it, the realistic views of learning a new craft when you're a little bit more advanced in your career otherwise. Like, let's say you were an accountant for 20 years and you built yourself a nice firm, you sold it, you made some decent money. So monetarily, you're not chasing the dollar per se in aviation, you're chasing the dream of flying airplanes professionally. One of the greatest things I think you can do is treat it like it's your second career from the time that you start flying. Enjoy the discovery flight, all that good stuff. But once you start your basic ground school or your ground instruction and you move into actually the physical act of flying the airplane, you treat it just like you would any other career or job piece that you're 100% motivated and devoted to do. I think that would solve a lot of issues for people who might run into some hardships. The other thing is timing is everything in life. And we've all heard that a million times. One of the best things I ever heard was there's no time like the present for timing is everything. Again, a cliched piece that's out there. But let's take a look at that. If you're starting the career and you're 19 years old, you got nothing but time on your side, and you probably have the capacity to devote a lot of energy to flying and learning how to fly airplanes. You may not have the money to do so, but there's ways that you can figure that out. When you get older, you may run into issues like family life. That's not necessarily a small issue. It's really tough. That normally kills a lot of dreams before it amplifies them, especially with kids. So you have to put this aside, and this is where, or not put the family aside, but you have to put that as an aside to the fact that you can systematize your day and structure out things and become heavily disciplined on that structure to complete the task that you have at hand. That will pay off in the future when you are trying to get jobs, because trying to get a job in the aviation industry, especially as you get more involved in the world of going to a major carrier, or you're at a low time job trying to get that next low time but slightly better position, searching for a job becomes its own full-time job too. So the way I look at this is thinking about this older person, funny, that's what they call themselves in aviation, is to systematize these things out and plan it. Now, how do I do that with the toolkit that I have? Yes, you can go on Pro and ask a lot of questions. You can go to the Facebook group. You can go outside, talk to forums, talk at the hangar flies, chapter people, the folks who are part of the chapters program, which is growing rapidly. These are things that can help. What I think could be even a better help before you go and start these questions is just building yourself your own structure. There's a million ways to do this now, especially with large language models. You can have all the help in the world that you could possibly need at your fingertips. But just sitting down with a notebook, writing out everything that you need, that you think you need to do, looking on YouTube and watching what people say, and then writing out your own plan. And one of the things that I've been doing that has really, really worked for me on getting my stuff done and has been a huge skill upgrade in my life is, instead of writing out my to-do list for the next day of 50 million different things, because there's always more, there's 10 pounds of stuff and it doesn't fit in my 2-pound bag. What I've done is I distill it down to the 5 most, quote unquote, most important things of the day. And I write those down. And if I get them all done, hey, I've accomplished something. Maybe I'll add 1 or 2 more, which is awesome. Or maybe I'll add even 5 more if I'm feeling great and I'm knocking stuff out left and right. And then whatever I don't accomplish, I just slide it to the next day. And I write that out kind of the night before, and I have it in my little notebook. And I just keep doing that, and I've noticed stuff's gotten done a lot better that way than it has in the past. I'm sure a lot of you already do this kind of a thing, but I thought it might help some people out who are still struggling in that arena of, okay, I have all this stuff that I want to do, especially when it comes to aviation. Now, how do I systematize it? How do I build a schedule for it? And when we're studying different aspects of flying, whether it's airplane and systems and knowledge about the aircraft itself or airspace regulations, whatever it might be that we're looking at outside of the actual aircraft, it's another good process saying, okay, tomorrow I'm going to knock out these 5 things. And if I can do more, awesome. You can also find many different study aids and helpers. Just, I caution you when you do find these things to verify them. Trust but verify. Gouge will get you far, but what can also be the death sentence if it's wrong. So make sure you verify within the product, or the product that you use, if it's a gouge piece, that you verify that that stuff is accurate in your flight operations manuals, your dash ones for your military folks, the FAR, the AIM, you can use those kind of things, and the host of other resource and source documents that you need to become a professional pilot. All right, so that's kind of a different aspect and look on a post that was about people helping out another person. Oh, by the way, another great way to help out is go seek out an instructor, whether it's a military instructor, CFII, whomever. And if you need to pay them for their time, CFI, it's okay to fork over a few bucks, but a lot of people just want to help. They want to talk about aviation, and they can help you process the information and move to that next step faster than if you did it on your own. Okay, there's always a lot of stuff going on in this world about smaller outfits, flying operations, moving on to larger fractional carriers, or going to the legacy 121 world, and kind of those divergent paths. We're going to get into that much later, or later in the year, in much more detail about paths in aviation. I'm going to have a lot of that on and going on in pro, and ways that you can look at, okay, maybe I'm not just going to be a legacy 121 guy or girl. That's totally fine. In fact, I think there's more people who are interested in that route than have ever been. 1, for access, and 2, just interest levels, because there's so much cool stuff that you can do in aviation. Here in the same, a lot of it comes from the first thing I just talked about, systematizing discipline, keeping yourself aligned with your goal. What the other thing I think we need to take a step back from is the goals will shift. The process that we use should stay the same, but the actual goal of what we might want to do could change any number of times. It has for me. I'm sure it has for many other pilots who listen to this. And that's a good thing, because you continually update yourself and better yourself as you move along. One of the things that I wanted to touch on here is in the world of the low time pilot, you're still working really hard to become a professional aviator who people not only trust and know that they can fly the airplane well, but that they want to have as a part of their company. I'll give you, for instance, one of my good friends is the director of a very prestigious and well-regarded flight department. They pay well above market rates for their pilots. It's a really good job. They have specific things that they look for and qualities they look for in a candidate. And some of that includes the quality of flying that the individual has done. So when you are still new in this world, just because you have all your tickets or most of your tickets punched doesn't mean that you're the expert. It means that you're getting there. I'm not an expert. I am knowledgeable, more so than people who are less experienced than I am. Maybe I don't have the general knowledge they do, but I have the experiential knowledge that they're going to gain throughout their career. This is your opportunity to gain a lot of that knowledge and put forth a ton of effort just in becoming a better professional pilot. When you move on, then you won't need to exercise as much of your time devoted to that piece, and you can learn more about the career field and expanding out where you can become the head of a corporate flight department or you can do those other things that you find fascinating, or you can just go fly the line and then spend your free time doing fun stuff with your family, friends at home, however you want to do it. So when we look at those paths and the different opportunities that should show up in your life, if you put yourself in the right position for them, the best thing that you can do early on is to become a competent, proficient, well-respected professional pilot. That way, when you do get the knock on the door or the email or the opportunity, you feel set. And I talked about that with Bill Sims on interview prep. It's just a microcosm of that, kind of getting yourself and being ready for the next phase, basically at all times, trying to piece together those things when the timing seems like it's too early or not right, but then you're solidly set. So when the opportunity strikes, you can quickly take advantage of it. So there's been another piece in there that was talking about ForeFlight and staff cuts. And one of our good friends over at ForeFlight, Travis Root, kind of dispelled some of the doom and gloom involved with ForeFlight. This is a post that happened in January and is a little bit older. I think ForeFlight, awesome product. Used it in the military. Do not use it at my current carrier. Know a lot of GA friends who love ForeFlight. I don't have any explanations, and nor do I want to get into what's going on over there. That's not my purview. What I want to say is the opportunity here is kind of cross technology platforms, learning other stuff that might come up and that you might be able to utilize to help you mission plan better, or whatever the case is, whatever you use ForeFlight for now, to be able to put in other pieces of that puzzle to help make your use of ForeFlight even better. Now, I can't speak to this expertly anymore because I'm out of the role of using ForeFlight in the military, and I don't do GA. So I can't tell you what I would be doing in that situation directly. I can say that what I have been doing to get myself ready to go back to work and go to the line is using outside resources and cross-referencing them against stuff that I have as source documentation. I think that's always the best way to go. This would be a little bit of talk on that first piece that we discussed, and even the second one is using the source documents to help you verify the gouge that you're using, or the study guides, or whatever you want to call them. So with ForeFlight, we'll see what happens. I think it'd be really interesting to see what they grow into, because there is such a track record of quality that they've put out that I can't just see them going away. It doesn't make sense. And Travis confirmed some of that in his post. So we'll see what's going to go on with ForeFlight. Please, if you have more interest in ForeFlight, send me an email at heyguys@thepilotnetwork.com. I'd love to get Travis back on and talk about what that looks like when he can discuss it, because I think ForeFlight is something that a lot of people are interested here. And we do have a month coming up way in the future about tech stuff in aviation, and ForeFlight would very much fit that mold. So let me know if you find that interesting, and we'll go deeper in that, or leave a comment down below, as they say on the YouTube. Like, subscribe, smash, all that stuff. And then the last piece is the Air Guard and Reserve. Bunch of slots opening up, and it's normally very popular on Facebook, and there's always good humor with some of those job postings. The interesting part is I have a couple podcasts in the can that we're going to do for pathway programs later, or pathways in the space of aviation, specifically related to the Guard and the Reserve. And I think there's some fascinating stuff going on in the world that may affect somebody's decision to join the Guard or Reserve. We shall see. What I want to say with the Guard and Reserve, to upgrade your skill set to get there, this is very, very, very simple in my mind. It takes three things. When I was a guardsman and reservist, and when I went to the Guard and Reserve, it's three real core pieces to get hired at a Guard Reserve unit, especially if you're it's maybe slightly different if you're on the UPT track as opposed to a rated individual. So let's start with the UPT track first. If you are trying to become and again, this is a 35,000 foot view, very quick snapshot. Talk more about this in detail later on. But if you're trying to become a pilot in the Air National Guard or Air Force Reserve, and you're off the street, as we like to call it, or you're prior enlisted, the best way that you can do all of this is to have brilliant test scores, glowing recommendations, and when you interview, you are a solid candidate. I could throw in there flight time. I could throw in there volunteer stuff. I could throw in there excellent grade point average from school with a solid technical major. Lot of units like that kind of stuff. But those three big things, if you have a really good AFOQT/PIXM or whatever they call it, I think it's still PIXM score, you have great recommendations from either former commanders or NCOICs or your civilian bosses who they can reach out to, and you can communicate well in the interview. Listen again to the Bill Sims episode just a couple weeks ago. Those three things will get you so much further than anything else that you can do. And then if you can fly, some units require that you have flown before. Not all of them, but if you can master those first three, which those are three are the most in your control now at this point. Like if you already graduated college and don't have great grades, nothing you can really do about that unless you went back to school and tried to bolster your GPA or get a master's degree or something like that. Flying costs a lot of money. If there's ways you could figure out to go fly or at least dabble in it, that way you have something to put on your record. That's great. And volunteerism is definitely inside your control, so you can volunteer as well. And then to kind of put those three that I talked about, those big three in perspective, is networking. When you grow that network of people and you get a lot of reps and talking and chatting with people, you become more of an asset because you're already an outstanding communicator. So use TPN for that purpose. Get out there and do those hanger flies if it's in a city near you. And if not, and you're interested in setting up a chapter, hit us up. Hey guys, pilotnetwork.com. It costs no money, and it's something that you can do to bring pilots together in your community, which I can go on a whole nother tangent about third spaces and the ability for us to get together offline so we can continue to grow our community and be feeling in that communal effort. We do need more of that in this world, in my opinion. So networking will help all of that. You can also figure out what you can best do to get put into these great positions to have a real opportunity and meet people who can help you figure it out and maybe do it faster or more efficiently. If you, instead of faster, more efficiently, then you would be doing it on your own. As far as those of you who are in a transitional piece where you're trying to step away from active duty and go to the Guard or Reserve, whether it's Navy, Army, Air Force, doesn't really matter, Coast Guard, all that stuff. In this world, networking is key. The good dude call is real. We've all done it. We will call back to units and check to see if how this person fit in. We will see how people fit into the unit. Now, that's not a showstopper, but it is something that you should be aware of. Your interview skill set here is really important, whether you think it is or not, because it's just a guard interview. You still need to have an excellent mastery of communication and how to communicate with people. I'll give you a little example. I did an interview once of a young gentleman who cursed during the interview. That's a no-go. And the other thing that they did that was a little bit rough was said how much they disliked their job that they were leaving. Well, if you didn't like that job, you're probably not going to like this one at some point too. It's a challenging thing to have as a interviewer put in front of you to then say, yeah, I really want this person in to work with me. So this is a skill that we can upgrade just by talking to other people and getting those things put to bed and rest and figure out different ways that we can share how we feel about something and putting a positive perspective and spin on it in our own mind. Because just because we have negative stuff going on at work, or we're not happy where we are, doesn't mean there's not positives. Let's take some of those out there and put those out in the world, which will help us when we're doing things like interviewing for these pretty coveted positions that are out there. So that's just a small dose of what we're talking about throughout TPN. This is what was going on in the Facebook group. We have a lot more in the TPN Pro, trying to do some of the podcast, and when we can have people come to the Hangar Flies, we really get to delve into these topics in detail, and you get more than just a perspective of me talking at you. You get a chance to interact, and that's what we really want. An audience is great, but even better than an audience is true interaction, especially in person. That's where we can really solve a lot of these things and kind of put to rest some of the animosity we may have towards one type of, and we're talking small stuff like 135, KC-135 guy versus a fighter guy, or civilian versus military, or how you got your ratings and all that kind of stuff. How young pilots don't seem to do this and older pilots seem to do that. It's all nonsense. If we can get together and talk about it, we can dispel a lot of that and get rid of those stereotypes that we put out in our mind and build a better, bigger network, which can help us and really help the community at large. I hope this gave you a little something. This recap kind of mixed in with some of the skill upgrade stuff that we're talking about right now within the Pilot Network. If you've got any questions, always hit us up at heyguys@thepilotnetwork.com. Head over to TPN Pro. There is a wonderful group of people who are participating, engaged. We've got something going on there almost every day. We try to build a engagement zone where we can talk about real things that are affecting all aspects of professional pilots and beyond. And we try to build month over month to make this 2026 your best year ever. It sounds like a grandiose plan, but that's what I'm shooting for. And I want everybody else to shoot for that too. If any of that hits correctly, just let me know real quick. Drop in, shoot me an email DM. And if it doesn't, let me know too, because I'm here to serve the network. Anyways, I hope you got a little something from this episode, and I look forward to seeing all of you at Hangar Flies, TPNX, on the Pro platform, on Facebook, wherever we may meet. Hopefully it'll be on a jet bridge or on the flight deck someday soon as well. And of course, keep the shiny side up and the greasy side down. Fly safe, everybody.